my child, before you move on to the next thing, before your thumb drifts back toward the endless scroll that has swallowed 1,000 quiet nights like this one. I need you to understand something about how these exact words reached you tonight. They were not easy to find, my beloved. This message was never meant to slide gently into your feed the way ordinary things do. Something worked against it reaching you. Something did not want this particular truth to land in your ears at this particular hour, because this truth undoes a lie you have carried for most of your life. But here you are. You stopped. You stayed. And that single act of stopping when everything in you was trained to keep moving was not an accident of the algorithm. And it was not chance. You were led here, my child. Most of the hearts awake at this hour will scroll past this without ever feeling the pull. You did not. That was decided long before you pressed play, and it is already being written down in heaven as the night I finally told you the truth about the two things I placed inside you that the world has spent years trying to convince you cannot live in the same person. So let me say it plainly before I say anything else. My beloved, because it is the whole reason you are here. I made you kind, and I made you fierce. I made you gentle enough to disarm a hardened heart with a single word. And I made you fierce enough to stand immovable the moment something holy is challenged in front of you. The world has told you those two things are a contradiction. The world has told you that you must choose, that you are either soft or you are strong, either a lamb or a lion, either the one who forgives or the one who fights. I am telling you tonight that this was never a contradiction. It was my design. You are a lamb and a lion in one vessel, my child, and I built you that way on purpose, for such a time as this one. Do not miss what I just said, my beloved, because the whole world will spend your life trying to make you miss it. I did not make you soft so that the world could trample you, my child, and I did not make you strong so that you could tower over anyone. I fashioned you to reflect both mercy and might, the way a single mountain can hold a gentle spring and an unmovable cliff in the same body of stone. You were never a contradiction. My beloved, you were a composition. The tenderness that disarms a frightened heart and the fierceness that defends what is holy were placed in you by the same hand, on the same day, for the same calling. And every time the world demanded that you pick one and bury the other, my child, it was not asking you to become simpler. It was asking you to become less than I made you to be. And if something in your chest tightened the moment I said that, my child, or if a slow stillness moved through you before your mind had language for what you were feeling, I do not want you to reason it away. That was not random. That was recognition arriving a step ahead of your understanding. That was the part of you that has always known you were made for more than the small, careful, apologetic version of yourself the world asked you to become, finally hearing itself named out loud. So do not talk yourself out of it, my beloved. Let it stay. It is the truest thing you have felt in a long while. Here is the lie I am undoing tonight, my child. The world looked at your gentle heart, and it called that heart weak. It saw the way you led with kindness, the way you gave people the benefit of the doubt, the way you chose to be soft in a hard world, and it decided that softness meant you could be pushed. It decided, my child, that a gentle person is a fragile person. But I know otherwise, my beloved, because I am the one who made you, and I know exactly why I made your heart the way I did. Your kindness was never fragility. Your gentleness was never an opening for the world to walk through and take whatever it wanted. It is written, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." That is Matthew 5:5. And hear me carefully, my child, because the world has misread that word for a very long time. The meek are not the passive. The meek are not the ones with no strength. The meek are the ones, my child, who have great strength and have chosen to hold it under control. Meekness is not weakness. Meekness is power with its hand on the reins. You were never a person with no fire. You were a person who learned to govern the fire, and the world mistook your governing for the absence of the thing you were governing. So take the first honest thing your spirit has heard in a long while, my beloved, and say it back to me where it can be recorded. Type, "I am kind," not weak, in the comments, not as a hope and not as a wish, my child, but as a fact you are finally allowed to believe about yourself. Because the enemy has spent years selling you the story that your gentleness was a flaw, that if you had only been harder you would have been safer, that your kindness was the reason people were able to hurt you, my beloved. And the moment you name your kindness as strength instead of weakness, you take that lie straight out of his hands. When you type it, heaven records that you were awake enough to answer when I finally called the thing by its real name. Let me show you what your kindness actually is, my beloved, because you have never once seen it the way I see it. Your kindness is not the inability to be fierce. Your kindness is restraint. It is a choice you make, over and over, to walk in love until the moment comes when holy fire must speak. When you forgive someone, you are not forgiving because you are blind to what they did. You see it clearly. You forgive because you understand the power of mercy in a way that hard people never will. When you choose patience, you are not choosing it because you have no other options. You have options, my child. You choose patience because you understand that vengeance was never yours to carry, and that a heart weighed down by the need to repay every wound will never be free enough to walk where I am sending it. It is written, the fruit of that righteousness will be peace. Its effect will be quietness and confidence forever. That is Isaiah 32:17. Your quietness was never emptiness, my beloved. It was confidence. It was a peace so settled that it did not need to announce itself to be real. So say that back to me too, my child, now that you have heard it named for what it is. Type power under control in the comments. Say it over every time someone mistook your calm for a lack of strength. Over every moment you held your peace and someone read it as though you had nothing to say. Because when you name your restraint as power and not passivity, you stop apologizing for the very self-control I built into you. And heaven records the moment you stop believing that your gentleness made you less. Before you go any further, stay close to me. If my voice is reaching you right now, follow this channel and turn on the reminder so that when I speak again, you will not miss the moment. You have waited too long to walk away right when I am beginning to answer. Now let me tell you about a kind of strength that the world does not recognize, my beloved, because it is the very kind I built into you. Strength in my kingdom does not look the way strength looks in the world. The world applauds the loudest voice in the room. It rewards dominance, volume, the person who talks over everyone else, and calls it confidence. But I do not esteem noise, my child. I esteem the quiet force that carries real authority and never once needs to prove it. It is written, the quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools. That is Ecclesiastes 9:17. Your whisper, my beloved, can shift more than another person's scream. There have been rooms where you said almost nothing, and your very presence changed the temperature of the air, and you did not understand why. It was because you were carrying a weight that does not come from volume. It comes from me. You have felt this your whole life, my beloved, even in the years you had no words for it. You are the one people quiet down around without quite understanding why. You are the one whose disappointment lands heavier than another person's rage, whose few words travel further than someone else's long speeches. That is not a quirk of your personality, my child. That is weight. And weight is something I lay on a life, not something a person can manufacture for themselves. The loud must keep proving that they matter. You have never had to prove it, my beloved, because what you carry announces itself in the stillness. And the people who need noise to feel powerful have always been unsettled by the one soul in the room who is powerful in silence. Your silence has always unsettled the people who thrive on conflict, my child. And I want you to understand that this was never avoidance on your part. It was discernment. When you refused to take the bait, when you would not be drawn into the argument that someone was desperate to have with you, that was not you being unable to fight. That was you knowing that the fight they wanted was not the fight worth having. It is written, in quietness and trust is your strength. That is Isaiah 30:15. Your quiet was never the sign of a person with nothing in them. It was the sign of a person who knew that the ground they refused to fight on was not the ground where I would give them the victory. And I built this restraint in you the way I have built it into every person I have ever entrusted with real authority, my beloved. I built it in hidden seasons that no one applauded. Before David ever stood in a valley and faced a giant that made an entire army tremble, he faced lions and bears in a field where no one was watching, and he faced them in silence. He learned in the hidden place that I was with him before he ever proved it in the seen place. Before Moses ever stood in front of Pharaoh and demanded that a nation be set free, He spent 40 years in a wilderness learning the patience that leadership would one day require of him. Restraint is not something that comes naturally to any person, my child. It is spiritual, it is learned, it is forged, it is written. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. That is James 1:19. And every time you have held your tongue when everything in you wanted to fire back, you were not being weak, my beloved. You were choosing the ground where I would win the victory for you. So testify to it, my child. Over the seasons you were sure were wasted silence. Type "my silence is strategy" in the comments. Say it over every time you were quiet and someone mistook it for surrender. Over every conflict you walked away from that. They thought you were too weak to finish. Because when you name your silence as strategy instead of defeat, you stop grieving the fights you never had. And heaven records the moment you understood that your restraint was never retreat. It was position. If this message is stirring something in your heart, you can sow a seed of faith today as an act of trust in this season where I am teaching you to carry both my gentleness and my fire. It is not about the amount. It is about the declaration that you believe God is already moving on your behalf. You can sow your seed through the link in the description below. Let it be your way of saying, I trust the timing, and I am ready to receive what has been prepared for me. Now hear something you have needed to hear for a very long time, my beloved. You did not wake up one morning already fierce. The fire in you was not handed to you as a gift. You did nothing to receive. You were forged. Long before you ever spoke with any authority, long before your words carried the weight they now carry, you were being shaped in a heat you did not understand and did not choose. It is written, see, I have refined you, though not as silver, I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. That is Isaiah 48:10. The fiercest people I have ever raised up were not made in palaces, my child. They were made in deserts. They were formed in the isolation that you resented, in the wounds you were sure had only broken you. That isolation sharpened your discernment until you could feel the difference between a true thing and a counterfeit the moment either one walked into the room. Those wounds became the very chisels that carved wisdom into you. It is written that these trials came so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor. That is 1 Peter 1:7. There is authority in your voice today, my beloved, precisely because your words were tested in the crucible of suffering. That is why darkness trembles. My beloved, when you finally open your mouth, it is not the volume of your voice that frightens it. It is what your voice survived, and I want you to understand what the desert actually did in you, my beloved, because you have only ever counted what it took from you. The isolation you hated taught you to hear my voice when there was no other voice around to drown it out. The seasons when no one chose you taught you not to build your whole identity out of applause that would vanish the moment it stopped being convenient for people to give. The wounds you were certain had disqualified you, my child, were the very places I deposited a compassion that comfortable hearts never develop, because a heart that has bled knows exactly where another heart is bleeding. You did not come out of that fire empty, my beloved. You came out carrying things that cannot be bought, and cannot be faked, and cannot be taken back from you, because you did not inherit them, my child. You survived into them. So claim it, my child. Over the fire you thought had only cost you, type "I was forged in fire" in the comments. Say it over the exact season you were most certain had broken you for nothing at all, because when you name the affliction as the furnace that forged you instead of the flame that failed you, you take the enemy's favorite lie out of circulation, and heaven records the moment you finally learned to read your own suffering the way I have always read it. Now let me show you the paradox that stands at the very center of who you are, my beloved, because until you see it, you will keep trying to be only one thing when I made you to be two. The same hands that reach down to comfort the broken are the hands that can overturn a table of injustice. Look at my own son, my child. Look at him closely. He healed the sick. He reached out and touched the lepers that everyone else refused to come near. He forgave the very people who betrayed him, even as they were betraying him. Mercy was his nature. My beloved, the truest thing about him. And yet, when he walked into his father's house and found it turned into a marketplace, he did not smile politely and look away. It is written that he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market." That is John 2:15-16. The same Jesus who wept over a grave and blessed the little children braided a whip with his own hands. Mercy was his nature, my beloved. But holy fire was his response, the moment holiness itself was mocked. Understand what this means for you, mercy. Without courage, slowly bends into compromise. Courage without love hardens into cruelty. But when mercy and fire walk together in the same heart, they reveal the very heart of heaven. It is written, love and faithfulness meet together, righteousness and peace kiss each other. That is Psalm 85:10. And it is written, he has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. That is Micah 6:8. Notice that I did not ask you to choose between justice and mercy. I asked you to carry both. Watch how carefully those two things were held together in him, my child, because it is the exact pattern for your own life. His fire never once fell on the weak. He never braided a whip for the leper, or the outcast, or the woman the crowd was so eager to stone. His gentleness went to the broken, my beloved, and his fire went only to the ones exploiting the broken in my name. That is the order, and you must never reverse it. Mercy for the wounded, and fire for the thing that wounds them. When you turn that order around, my child, when your fire falls on the fragile and your endless patience is spent excusing the predator, you have inverted the very design of heaven. So let me set it right in you tonight. My beloved, be soft where I am soft, and be fierce where I am fierce. And never again let anyone talk you into aiming your gentleness and your fire at the wrong targets. And do not think for a single moment that I failed to see the years you carried the mercy alone, my child. I saw all of it. I saw every time you chose restraint when everything in you wanted to strike back. I saw the words you swallowed to keep a peace that cost you more than anyone knew. I saw the moments you turned the other cheek and then went somewhere private to bleed where no one could see the price of your gentleness. I did not merely watch it, my beloved, I recorded it. Every time you chose to be kind when cruelty would have been easier and more satisfying. Every time you refused to become the very thing that wounded you. Every quiet mercy that no one thanked you for, and no one even noticed. It is all in the record, my child. And the record does not lie, and the record does not expire. And I did not keep it for decoration. I keep a record for one reason. I keep it in order to answer it. So declare it, my beloved. Now that you know both halves of yourself are mine, type I am lamb and lion in the comments. Say it over every time you were told to be only one, over every voice that insisted you had to choose between being soft and being strong. Because when you name yourself as both, you stop amputating the parts of yourself that make you whole, and heaven records the moment you finally agreed with the God who made you a lamb and a lion in the same body. My child, do not walk this road alone. Follow this channel and join the ones who have kept their hearts open to me. Every time you return here, you are saying yes to me again, and I honor every heart that stays. Now I have to teach you something that your kindness has kept you from learning, my beloved. And it is this. Being kind does not mean you let everyone walk through your soul uninvited. You have believed somewhere deep down that having boundaries made you less loving, that saying no to someone made you cruel, that protecting your peace was a kind of selfishness you were not allowed to practice. Hear me, boundaries are not the opposite of love. Boundaries are the safeguard of the very assignment I placed inside you. It is written, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That is Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, my child, not carelessly, not with the doors flung open to anyone who wishes to come in and take. Even my own son, who came to give himself away completely, withdrew from the crowds who wanted every piece of him. It is written that after a day of healing the multitudes, very early in the morning while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. And when the crowds came looking, his disciples found him and said everyone was searching for him, and he answered that it was time to move on to the next towns. That is Mark 1:35-38. He said no to the crowd in order to say yes to his Father. A no that protects your yes to me is not selfishness. my beloved. It is alignment. It keeps you from being consumed by everyone who wants a piece of you, so that you have something left to give to the ones I actually sent you to. You have called it love, my beloved. This long habit of letting everyone take from you until you are running on nothing left. But hear me gently now. Depletion is not love. Exhaustion is not holiness. When you give away what I entrusted to you until there is nothing in you to pour, my child, you are not being generous. You are being consumed, and a consumed vessel cannot water the people I actually assigned to your life. Even the deepest well has a bottom, my beloved, and I never once asked you to let people lower their buckets into you until you ran completely dry. I asked you to steward the water so that it would still be there for the ones who are genuinely thirsty. The one who guards their heart, my child, is not the one who has stopped loving. It is the one who has finally learned how to love without disappearing. So say it over the doors you have left open too long, my child. Type my no protects my yes in the comments. Say it over every person who took your kindness as permission to keep taking, over every relationship where you gave, until there was nothing left and called the depletion love. Because when you name your boundary as protection and not cruelty, you stop believing that a gentle heart has to be a defenseless one. And heaven records the moment you learn to guard the very thing everything else in your life flows out of. And if your heart feels full right now, think of someone else who needs to hear these words. You can sow a seed in their name through the link in the description below, as a prayer that this same peace finds them. When you give in faith for another, you plant something that God multiplies back into your own life. Now I must change the weight in my voice, my child, and speak to you with a different kind of authority, because there is an accounting that has to be named, and it cannot be named in the same tender tone I have used with you until now. So hear me plainly. There were people who looked at your gentleness and decided it meant you were theirs to use. They mistook your kindness for weakness. They treated your softness like a doormat they had every right to wipe their feet on. They took your patience as a license to keep crossing the same lines again and again because you did not retaliate. And they assumed a person who does not retaliate is a person who cannot. They underestimated you precisely because you chose not to strike back, and they built their comfort on the belief that you never would. They counted your silence as defeat. They read your restraint as proof that you had nothing in you to fear. I saw every one of them. I saw the one who smiled at you while quietly deciding how best to use you. I saw the one who took your forgiveness as weakness and returned to the very same offense before the week was even out. I saw the one who spoke about you in rooms you were never in, who counted on your silence to make their version the only version anyone heard. I do not name them to feed a wound. I name them because a thing that stays unspoken stays unhealed, and you have carried some of this so quietly for so long that you began to wonder whether it had ever really happened at all. It happened. I was there. And nothing done in the dark is hidden from the one who keeps the record. Hear the accounting now, spoken without heat, because it does not need heat to be true. They counted wrong. When I give the command and I alone decide the hour, the lion that they never believed was in you will rise, and they will be confounded by a courage that does not come from flesh. Every underestimation they ever made becomes a stage for my vindication. The very people who were so certain you were weak will stand and watch a strength emerge that they cannot explain and cannot account for, because it was never yours to manufacture. It was always mine to release. And understand this clearly, my child, so that you carry it correctly. You do not rise for your ego. You do not rise to settle a personal score or to make anyone feel the way they made you feel. You rise for truth, so it is not your revenge. It is my justice. It is written, no weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and this is their vindication from me, declares the Lord. That is Isaiah 54:17. The weapons were formed. I will not pretend to you that they were not, but they will not prosper, and they will not have the final word over who you are. You do not settle this. You keep walking in the kindness I gave you, and I settle it. And understand when the fire is meant to rise, my beloved, because this is where so many go wrong. Your fire is never about you. It is never moved by ego or personal offense. It is never the reflex of a wounded pride looking for someone to make bleed. When your fire rises rightly, it is obedience to a higher voice, not a reaction to a lower wound. When I signal that the moment has come, you rise, and heaven's authority rises with you. It is not rage. Rage leaves wreckage behind it and calls the wreckage justice. What I put in you is righteousness, and righteousness leaves freedom behind it. It is written, the wicked flee, though no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. That is Proverbs 28:1. But your boldness is not self-made, my child. It is spirit-breathed. It is written, so I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. That is Galatians 5:16. Human anger leaves a trail of ruin. Spirit-led courage brings justice that actually heals. Your boldness must always be guarded by self-control, passionate and yet pure, fierce and yet clean. So agree with the order of it, my beloved, and refuse to rise a single moment before it is time. Type "Let heaven give the command" in the comments. Say it as someone who is done fighting battles I never assigned you. Done spending your fire on offenses that were never worth it. Because when you name my command as the trigger and not your own wounded pride, you agree with the God who taught you that the lion rises on my word and not on your reaction. And heaven records the moment you handed the timing of your fire back to me. Now hear what happens when my chosen finally do speak. My child, because it is unlike anything the world produces. When you speak under my anointing, the air in the room feels different. Your words stop being ordinary words and become carriers of divine power. It is written, then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. That is Jeremiah 1:9-10. A roar that is born of my spirit is not noise, my beloved. It is a decree that heaven enforces. When you speak the word I place in your mouth, my child, walls that have stood for years begin to fall, and captives who have forgotten what freedom sounds like suddenly recognize it in your voice. That is why the enemy worked so hard to keep you quiet. He was never afraid of your silence. He was afraid of your roar. Think of how long you kept that roar folded up inside you, my child, and mistook the silence for peace. There were moments when the true word was rising in your throat, and you pressed it back down because you did not want to be the one who disturbed the room. And every time you did it, something in you grieved, and you could not say why. That grief was not weakness, my beloved. That was a caged thing that knew it had been made to be free. I am not asking you to become loud, my child. I am not asking you to become harsh, or to go looking for reasons to unleash what is in you. I am asking you to stop silencing the word I placed in your mouth. When a weary person is standing right in front of you, and the truth is the only thing that will hold them up, there is a time to be quiet, my beloved, and you have mastered it. Now I am teaching you the harder discipline, which is knowing the exact moment the quiet must end. And here is the thing you must never forget about that roar, my child, because it is what keeps your fire holy. You do not fight people. You never fought people. The moment your warfare turns against a human being, it has already left my hands. It is written, for though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. That is 2 Corinthians 10:3-5. Your fight was always against the stronghold, never against the person the stronghold had captured. It is written, put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood. That is Ephesians 6:10-11. The armor stands against schemes, my beloved, not against people. And it is written, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That is Romans 12:21. Your fierceness was never given to you so that you could put chains on anyone. It was given to you so that you could pull chains off the ones the enemy bound. You do not fight against people, my child. You fight for them. Let that reframe every battle you ever thought you were fighting. My beloved, the person who wounded you was not your true enemy. They were another captive, bound by something older and darker than themselves. doing its work without even knowing whose work it was. Your fierceness was never meant to destroy them, my child. It was meant to war against the thing that held them, so that one day even they might be set free of it. This is exactly why I can trust you with fire, my beloved, when I could never trust it to a heart that only wants revenge. You do not want to make anyone bleed. You want to watch the chains fall off, even the chains on the ones who hurt you. That is the heart of heaven, my child, and it is the whole reason your roar is safe in your mouth. What you have heard today is only the beginning. There is more I want to show you in the days ahead. Follow this channel so you can walk the rest of this journey with me, because I am not finished speaking over your life. Now let me speak to the habit you have carried for most of your life. My beloved, the one I am asking you to lay down tonight for good. You have spent years apologizing for your fire. You lowered your voice so that other people would feel more comfortable in your presence. You softened your own light so that it would not expose the shadows that other people were hiding in. You made yourself smaller in room after room, and you told yourself that shrinking was humility, that dimming yourself was a kind of kindness. Hear me, my child. I never once asked you to shrink. I asked you to shine. It is written, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses. That is Acts 1:8. Power, my beloved. Not a smaller and safer version of yourself, but power. Your fire is not rebellion, my beloved. Your fire is obedience. When you refuse to shrink, you are not being arrogant, you are being faithful to the size I made you. The world does not need one more person, my child, who has learned to disappear in order to keep everyone else comfortable. It has more than enough of those already. What the world does not have nearly enough of is warriors who love deeply and fight righteously, people who are tender enough to weep with the broken and fierce enough to stand between the broken and the thing that is trying to destroy them. It is written, so do not fear, for I am with you, do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That is Isaiah 41:10. You do not have to be afraid of your own fire, my child. I am holding the hand that carries it. So say it now, my child, over every single room where you made yourself smaller just to keep someone else comfortable. Type "I will not shrink" in the comments. Say it as a person who is finally done dimming their own light, so the shadows around them can stay hidden, done swallowing the true word to protect a false peace. Because when you refuse to shrink, my beloved, you are not being proud. You are agreeing with the exact size I made you, and heaven records the moment you stopped apologizing for the fire I lit inside you on purpose. And I love you far too much to send you back out unprepared, my beloved. So let me warn you about what is coming in the hours after this. The enemy will not waste any time. He will try to talk you straight back into the smallness you are just now walking out of. He will whisper that you were too much tonight, that the fire you just felt rising in you is dangerous, that it would be safer and holier to go back to being only gentle, only quiet, only accommodating. He will tempt you to mistake your own gentleness for weakness again, the exact lie we just took apart together. Do not believe it, my child. The return of that old voice is not a sign that any of this was wrong. It is confirmation that all of it was right, because he does not fight this hard for the things that do not matter. When the doubt comes dressed as caution, when the shrinking comes dressed as humility, you will recognize it now, because I named it for you before it arrived. Let its arrival be your proof, my beloved, not your defeat. And I want you to know why you, of all the hearts awake at this hour, are the ones still here, my child. Because you did not skip this message, because you stayed through the whole of it when everything in a restless world was pulling at your attention. When closing this and moving on would have been the easier and more natural thing. That staying was not a small thing, my beloved. Heaven holds something in reserve for the ones who remain to the end, and what is being released right now was held back specifically for you, not as a reward you earned by performing, but because it genuinely required this. It required you to stay, and to hear all of it, and to let it reach the exact place inside you it was sent to reach. And you did. So what was sealed for the faithful is being opened now, specifically for the one who was still here when it counted. And I know the enemy tried to make you leave before this, my child. I know there were moments in these last minutes when your attention was pulled in a dozen directions. And the easy thing would have been to close this and forget you ever felt what you felt tonight. But you stayed, my beloved. You let me finish. And because you let me finish, you now carry the whole truth, and not merely a fragment of it, the lamb and the lion together, the mercy and the fire as one single design. A person who only heard half of this would walk away still believing they had to choose. You will not walk away believing that, my child, because you were still here when I spoke the last of it, and the last of it is the very part that makes you whole. So now, my beloved, let me gather the whole of it into the truth this entire message has been walking you toward. You carry both. You are the lion and the lamb in one vessel, and I designed you that way. It is written. Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed." Then I saw a lamb looking as if it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne. That is Revelation 5:5-6. The elder announced a lion, and the one who turned to look saw a lamb. The lion and the lamb were never two beings, my child. They were the same one. The triumph of the lion and the gentleness of the lamb who was slain live in a single body at the center of the throne. And it is written, "The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. In his love he will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over you with singing." That is Zephaniah 3:17. A mighty warrior who quiets you with his love, might and tenderness. In the same God spoken over you in the same breath. That is who I am, my beloved, and I made you in that image. The gentleness that makes you approachable, and the fierceness that rises at exactly the right moment, are not opposites at war inside you. They are partners in your calling. They were always meant to walk together, and tonight I am telling you to stop making them apologize to each other. So say the last thing, my child, the thing this whole message has been leading you toward from the very first word. Type "I carry mercy" and fire in the comments. Not one or the other, not on the days you feel strong or only in the seasons you feel soft, but both together, as the design they always were, because when you declare that you carry both, my beloved, you agree with everything heaven wove into you before you were born. And the record shows that on this night, the lamb and the lion inside, you finally stopped fighting each other and started walking together. So come close now, my daughter, and every son standing in this same place tonight, and let me bless you before you go. I speak over your gentleness, that you would never again call it weakness or apologize for the tenderness I built into you on purpose. I speak over your fire, that you would stop dimming it to keep the room comfortable, and that you would let it rise clean and holy in the exact moment I commanded, and not a moment before. I speak self-control over your strength, that your boldness would always be spirit-breathed and never flesh-driven, passionate and yet pure. I speak vindication over every place you were underestimated, and I remind you that the settling of it is mine and never yours to carry. I speak protection over your boundaries, that your no would guard your yes to me, and that your soul would no longer be a road that anyone is free to walk through uninvited. And I speak this over you plainly, my beloved. You were made kind, and you were made fierce, and both were my idea. So go and be the lamb and the lion I made you to be, and stop asking a world that could never understand you for permission to be exactly what heaven designed. As we come to the end, hold in your heart the one thing you are believing for right now. If you feel led, you can sow a final seed of faith for that very thing through the link in the description below. Do it not out of pressure but out of trust, knowing that God honors every faithful heart. And whether you sow or simply stay, may peace cover you, may every door meant for you open, and may you walk fully into the miracle that has already begun. Amen.